evening and welcome to KTN Prime this Thursday evening. We're continuing to cover for you the Pope's visit to Kenya in the way only we can. Welcome to our bulletin tonight. I'm Yvonne Okwara Matole. Today we will be discussing his foray into the UNEP and his thoughts and views on the environment. Are we a wasteful nation? What are the things we can learn from the Pope and indeed his visit to Kenya in terms of conservation of the environment, considering this is coming just days to the climate talks in Paris? We will be discussing that and so much more right here on KTN Prime. Let's take a look at our top stories tonight. The Pope's historic Mass at the University of Nairobi.
Tumemwita kwa jina la Pope Francesco Mario. Hiyo ni kwa heshima.
They shall be called Francis. Meet the babies born across Kenya on this day. A place for pilgrims, the special shrine in the Pope's Ugandan itinerary. And the Hague summit closes amid anxious moments for Kenya's delegation. Welcome to our program tonight. Our sign language interpreter is Maresha Owiti. It was indeed anxious moments until breakthrough was got at last for the Kenyan delegation at The Hague. After 8 days of intense lobbying at the Assembly of State Parties, Kenya has secured the approval of the ASP Bureau, reaffirming the non-retroactive application of Rule 68 in Deputy President William Ruto's case. A breakthrough that was secured through the wire after Kenya threatened to pull out of the Rome Statute at the ASP Bureau meeting, accusing the Bureau Committee tasked with the Kenyan agenda of lacking genuine commitment to address Kenya's concerns. The ASP president intervened to have the matter renegotiated to Kenya's terms.
Tethering and dangling on the edge, Kenya's diplomacy at the Assembly of State Parties was laced with threats of withdrawing from the ICC should the ASP fail to reaffirm the non-retroactive application of Rule 68. Coming on the very last day, Kenya protested to the ASP Bureau, accusing the Bureau Technical Committee handling its agenda of lacking genuine commitment to her concerns. The ASP president referred the matter back to the committee for consensus. The issue being Kenya felt the language used in the draft proposal by the Bureau Technical Committee had watered down her case, thereby demanding affirmation in the text before the proposals could be adopted in the resolutions. Ambassador Amina Mohammed described the last-minute push as a painstaking negotiations to strike consensus. Aside from Rule 68, Kenya was also pushing for an unequivocal resolution on the audits of the ICC witness procurement process.
Thank you very much.
It has been a grueling 8 days of diplomatic maneuvers as Kenya put up a spirited effort to save Deputy President William Ruto. Does the approval of non-retroactive application of the use of recanted evidence signals crumbling of the Ruto case? The application of Rule 68 meant ICC prosecutor Fatou Bensouda was free to use statements by witnesses who either recanted or withdrew from testifying. The prosecutor had asked to be allowed to use the statements of witnesses declared hostile after being compelled by the court to testify. At the ICC appeals chamber, Ruto and Sang defense teams appealed against the decision to allow recanted evidence to be used in the trial. Samogina, KTN News.
So our big question tonight, we're asking you what your comment is on the success by the Kenyan delegation at The Hague. What is your comment on the success by the Kenyan delegation at The Hague? Please send us in your comments to the number 2215. It is not a yes or no, so this will not be a poll result, but we would like to hear your views. 22155, it's absolutely free. You can get in touch with me at Yvonne Okwara or at KTN News. We look forward to hearing from you on this matter. Let's go on with our focus on the coverage of the Pope's visit to the country. Now, this morning, the Pope celebrated the long-awaited Mass, his first one on African soil. The Pope, who was received at the University of Nairobi grounds by cheering and ululating crowds, called for unity, strong family values, and the need to care for the needy. The Mass at the University of Nairobi grounds was attended by thousands of faithful who braved rainy and chilly weather to see and hear from the Pontiff.
After months of planning and waiting, the day was finally here. With their faithful Mass invite cards at hand, thousands of faithful headed to the University of Nairobi grounds for the special celebration of Mass, some from hundreds of kilometers away.
My name is Madelina Paul. I'm from South Sudan.
And not even the chilly, rainy weather and long queues could deter them. Here, age proved just a number. It was a morning that saw clear roads in the city, the central business district taken over by buses that had ferried faithful to the city from various parts of the country, and the police came out in full force, even with their quad bikes. But not everything went quite according to plan. Confusion reigned over which gates the faithful were to use. There was a near stampede at one gate as faithful attempted to push their way past the National Youth Service personnel manning the gate. But even with the rain, long queues, pushing and shoving, it may have been well worth the trouble. The Pope got a rousing welcome from the thousands of faithful here. As he arrived to preside over his first Mass in Africa. A Mass that was attended by dignitaries, among them Kenyan President Uhuru Kenyatta and his deputy William Ruto, opposition chiefs, former President Mwai Kibaki, former First Lady Mama Ngina Kenyatta, cabinet secretaries, members of the diplomatic corps and members of parliament. And not even the weather could subdue the mood here, as the faithful waited to hear the message from the Pope during his biggest event while in the country. Pope Francis, who picked Kenya as the first stop of his three-nation tour of Africa, delivered the gospel and homily in Italian through a translator.
Sappiamo che questa profezia.
He spoke of the need to respect and honor the family unit and stay away from practices that tear families apart.
We are also called to resist practices which foster arrogance in men, hurt or demean women, ignore the elderly, and threaten the life of the innocent unborn.
He called for unity, respect for one another, emphasized the need to care for the poor, the elderly and children, and urged the youth to let the great African traditions and the wisdom of God's word guide them in shaping society.
Mungu awabariki. Mungu awabariki Kenya.
The historic Mass saw prayers offered for the church, the nation and the needy in different languages, including Maasai and Turkana. And the Pope got to experience the celebration of Mass Kenyan style. There were lively moments, this young choir master proving that he too can do it. Some perhaps too young to understand just how important the man leading the Mass here is. It was a historic 1 hour 40 minutes for those that got the rare chance to attend the Mass, a celebration of Mass that witnessed rare handshakes and smiles between the President and his greatest critics. It was the first ever celebration of Mass on African soil by Pope Francis. And for the thousands who gathered here at the University of Nairobi grounds, not even the chilly and rainy weather could make them pass the chance of a lifetime to see and hear from a pontiff described as the people's pope. Vita Tinina, KTN News.
Dedicated to their religious work and to always pray for the weak and oppressed in society. The Pope, who was addressing Catholic clerics at St. Mary's School in Lavington, Nairobi, said the clergy hold an important place in society and must always create time to pray, since that is the only way they can get divine direction to guide them through their daily religious duties.
Together we reach out to touch the untouchables.
Together we move out to teach them.
I give thanks to my God at every remembrance of you. The Gospel from the first day until now.
For the prayers of the intercession.
El alma de una religiosa, de un religioso, de un sacerdote que no reza,
Or a priest who doesn't pray
es un alma fea.
is an ugly soul.
Perdón, pero es así.
I ask forgiveness, but that is how it is.
Les dejo esta pregunta.
I leave you this one question.
Yo le quito tiempo al sueño.
Do I take time away from sleep? Do I reduce my sleep time?
Le quito tiempo a la radio, a la televisión,
Do I reduce the time I look at television,
a las
radio,
revistas para
magazine,
rezar.
to pray?
Pope Francis has called for cooperation by nations in fighting the damaging effects of climate change on the planet. The Pope, who visited the United Nations Environmental Programme headquarters in Gigiri, Nairobi today, further urged world leaders to seal a strong agreement at the Paris Climate Change Conference that starts next Monday. The Pope says that transforming current development models is a political and economic obligation for all nations. Francis planted a tree on the UN grounds, a further symbol to his environmental commitment.
Bishop of Rome.
Indeed, we see the Pope arriving here at the UN, one of the conferences at the UN complex here, the United Nations office in Nairobi, is expected to give a speech on matters climate change, coming just a few days before the climate change conference set to take place in Paris.
After His Holiness sits,
there is a need to promote urban planning and maintenance of public areas which move in this direction of dignified living conditions and take into consideration the views of local residents. And this will help to eliminate the many instances of inequality and pockets of urban poverty.
And we're back here on KTN Prime talking about the Pope's visit to Kenya and indeed his message regarding the environment, wastage and conservation. Still here with Dr. Isaac Alo, who's the chair of the Green Africa Foundation. Before we took a break, you were giving us your definition of green, which resonates with the Pope's as well. It's not just about trees, is it?
It's not about trees.
Yeah.
Green has three meanings to me, and this is very clear, and this is what we need to appreciate as Kenyans and also people all over the world. First, green is treating people kindly. This is about good ethics, is about treating people kindly, is about values. The second, green is working towards good health, peace within communities, and creating sustainable livelihoods. Then the third, green, is the passionate environmental conservation. So when I say always think green and act green, it encompasses all this, which I believe is the message that Pope brought home in a very, very cool manner.
How interesting is it that the Pope, the head of 1 billion Catholic faithful around the world, is a man who was chosen to embrace this message of, conserving our environment, of going green, if you like. What's the effect of that, do you think?
With over 1.2 billion Catholics, the message that Pope brings home is not only for those faithfuls, it touches on all the people world over. And I believe, God uses people to pass a message of His. And I believe this time He's using the Pope and many others who are unsung around and beyond our countries. And therefore, out of his experience, his lifestyle brings home the green message, where caring about people, caring and balancing issues of environment and our own issues, then brings home the message. Look at what he brought home. Some 4 areas that I may look at. Hazardous effects to the environment. So much so deep that leads to actual environmental refugees. We are talking of IDPs. We actually have such people who have been led to such a position deliberately out of our negative effects of environment. The second thing that he raised, which is very important, is about rich countries dealing with environmental issues with the same manner that they deal with other issues. I want to see my good friend, Ambassador of the US, Godek, dealing together with the British Ambassador in the same manner that they've been dealing with environmental issues to be dealt with and pushed with, just like terrorism is in these areas. Going also to third area, which is on being creative, being God's image. Talking about salvation is like we actually also need green salvation, because we have committed so much in this country. We cannot be a country that is crying of environmental effects when we are the best in exporting charcoal in the region. Actually in Africa, we are a leading country in export of charcoal. This is happening truly every single day. The other day, just 2 days ago, sandalwood being exported and people taking it out, and this is only one that has been found. There must be so many, and we have responsible officers from KFS, we have responsible officers from the police units who are seeing this happening every time. We also have other issues dealing with the building in the wetlands. When we have our own conscience and dealing with issues that we must deal with. But finally, about the Pope's message, we must not just deal with posterity issues, but also immediate issues. Water is a challenge. We need to deal and provide clean water, and we must take action today that can resonate with what we are actually looking forward. Balancing development and so many issues
absolutely.
In this case.
Water, you say, and access to clean water is definitely a challenge in this part of the world. Now this brings me to the question of wastage, because many a time when we see heavy rains like we're experiencing at the moment, which by the way is such a great coincidence that he's visiting Kenya and indeed Africa at a time when we're going through the El Nino weather effects, and many say, look, we're wasting all of this water, and this is something that the Pope has addressed in great deal, wastage. And it's at all levels.
Yes. Let me not even start with what every Kenyan would think of wastage. And you see, most of the times we are pointing a finger to the other person, not knowing that it is our own responsibility to deal with issues. Talk about wastage. Yesterday, I thank God I had the opportunity of attending the function at State House where we were invited. And I looked at one of the simplest things that you would not even imagine. This was the presidential program.
Okay.
When you look at it, it's printed by our government printer.
Yeah.
It has 12 good pages, but printed on it is only 4 pages. That includes the cover page, and everything else is just in 4 pages. What would be the motivation to have 4 pages printed on 12 pages? One, maybe you want to have so many papers so that the money can be made in one way or another.
Right.
But we just need to be efficient. This is all that we need to be on how to maintain and to deal with these issues. So everybody is a culprit in this situation. This is not where you point at the president. This is not where you point at the county government. County governments are doing a lot of efforts. In fact, some of the times it is the individuals in those places that are letting this down. We have water that must be taken care of. We are complaining of El Nino in as much as it is messing up. We are complaining of people who have misappropriated funds for El Nino or something that needed to be done. But we also need to look at the advantage. How much water are we saving? And very soon you're going to see people with donkeys traveling for 5 kilometers, yet water was just readily available. Wastage is at so many levels that we need to start taking responsibilities and understand as a country what we need to do. Talk about Mau Forest. Talk about all the water towers that I am part and parcel of leading this. We have government officers in all these places. People are not taking responsibilities that they should be able to take. And I want to particularly thank His Excellency the President. Very recently, a team of adults, African male adults or women, sat together and say that we want to create a buffer within the region of Mau Forest and create a buffer of 100 meters by about 50 kilometers, clear all the forests of indigenous and plant tea in those areas. I thank His Excellency the President because he did not go to endorse that project because it is a catastrophe. We are clearing our forests, indigenous forests, trees that have grown for hundreds of years, and someone with his own mind just goes to cut down the trees without thinking about the future. So wastage is experienced at all levels. And we must confess. And then, because this was a national prayer day, confess and start afresh, knowing that I am responsible. Who is the government? The government is me and you. We must not point at other people who are said to be in power.
Okay, I just have about a minute to go, and we do want to mention you are the chair of Honda Kenya. What was that moment like for you seeing the Pope? Did you know that he was going to ride in a Honda? And have you experienced any, take us for the Honda now?
Yes, bring us home. The issue of driving is driving green. Why should you use a vehicle that can only use about 10 kilometers for a liter? Use a green vehicle that will give you a short, fewer fuel for a long distance. And I think that's the message, more than just how glad I was as part and parcel of Honda, because the vehicle we sold it to Ministry of Foreign Affairs. It's called a Ballard. It uses 15 to 18 kilometers per liter. It's a green car. So I think the message more than anything else is that let us drive green. Let us pool vehicles together. When you're living with your neighbor, drive with them to work when you have to do that. Use common transport. And I think that's the message that the Pope is passing.
All right, so how many inquiries have you gotten since
yesterday? Many. Actually, I think about more than 20 vehicles now people are coming to buy out of that. Motorcycles the same. Because it's about the brand and it's about the message
well done.
We can do.
Well done. And indeed, just talking about wastage. And thanks very much for sharing your views with us, Dr. Isaac Kalua, who's the chair of the Green Africa Foundation and also the chair of Honda Kenya, talking to us about the environment and how we're conserving it and how that resonates with the Pope's message, not just here, but indeed across the world. We thank you for your time.
Thank you very much for having me.
Now, many Kenyans across the country are very excited about Pope Francis' visit to Kenya. Well, in true Kenyan fashion, some mothers are choosing to show their appreciation of the Pope by naming their newborn babies after the pontiff. Trix Ingado brings us those details.
Pope Francis has been known to have a soft spot for infants, occasionally stopping to greet babies on the streets of various countries he has toured. It is perhaps this fact that makes naming newborn babes born on the day of his arrival in Kenya a fitting way to honor the man of God, just as some mothers from various parts of Kenya have. In Nakuru town, it was all joy and laughter when this bundle of joy was delivered just a few hours after the pontiff's plane touched down.
Kwa jina la Pope Francisco Mario, hiyo ni kwa heshima na pia kwa kushukuru Mwenyezi Mungu. Nilideliver mtoto jana, our last born sister huyo mwenye nasikia ameingia sisterhood kwa convent, akanipigia simu na akasema sasa wakati aliniuliza tumepata baby boy, nikamwambia, akaniambia hiyo sasa kwa heshima ya Pope aitwa Francesco.
The family from Mogotio in Baringo County then decided to christen their new blessing Francesco Mario because he was born on a historic day for Kenyans, Catholics and non-Catholics alike.
Nikijua kama Mwenyezi Mungu anasikia, nikaambia Mungu, sababu umenipea watoto 11, nitakupea hata 2 akutumikie, sababu uchukue 10%. Hakuna kitu nimepea.
Similarly in Nyeri, Grace Modoni honored the Pope by naming her little baby boy Francis Waweru. Francis was also born yesterday around the time of the Pope's arrival. Baby Francis was born in Othaya Hospital, weighing 4 kilos. Trixingado, KTN News.
Francisco Mario, yeah, that is quite something there, and that's typical Kenyan fashion. So that's what's happening in Kenya. Meanwhile, neighboring Uganda is all set to receive Pope Francis tomorrow. During his stay in Uganda, the Pope will visit the Mapera Bagatayamba's home in the capital, Kampala. KTN's Solomon Serwanja visited the home and tells us why it attracted a papal visit.
It is a voice testing and choir practice session for these sisters who have been singing their vocal cords out for 2 hours in rehearsal ahead of the Pope's arrival. Pope Francis will visit the Mapera Bakateyamba's home in the capital, Kampala, on Saturday the 28th of November. Special to this home are its family members, people that society consider outcasts due to their special needs. It is lunchtime and everyone is served with a dish, but close attention is given to how these disabled people are fed. The home is run by the Catholic Church and has over 40 staff. Sister Teresa of the Avila Basemera is the administrator of this home. She tells me that not only the mentally and physically deformed people are rehabilitated here. The elderly are the majority in the family.
We feed them everything. We are the one who's made for a spinal, for example, the spinal cord. If you lose their spinal cord, everything, you are like a baby. So we have to help them like that, feeding, take them to the bathrooms, doing so many things on them.
The eldest member of this home is Benon Kabagonza, who is 102 years old. He was brought to this home 30 years ago from Masaka district by a clergy. He wants to inform the Pope that he wants to be buried here. Mzee Kabagonza has been promised a front seat as the oldest to have a chance of viewing the Pope, or perhaps have a handshake with the Blessed Father. His other colleagues will, however, be indoors since they may be wary to walk to the venue of the event. The church takes care of all the needs of these elderly persons whose age ranges from 60 to 102 years. These elderly people are picked from different parts of the country and admitted into this home no matter their religious backgrounds. Also significant to this home is its historical background relating to the Uganda martyrs who were killed.
Uganda martyrs and the missionaries who brought the religion in Uganda, they had a catechism in this place. Many different Uganda martyrs, they were coming from their places on Wednesdays, and on Fridays they have to go back to help the people to learn what they have taught by Rodel Mapera and by Ramas.
Security remains tight at the home, being manned by the Special Forces Command. The home was founded in 1879 by the late Cardinal Emmanuel Nsubuga, whose remains rest at the center of the facility. When Pope Francis arrives here, he will conduct Mass in this church where hundreds of people are expected to attend, especially the handicapped. Now, Pope Francis's visit to this home comes with no surprise, considering that his heart often goes out to the hurting. Now, even though his stay here is short-lived, his message of hope will remain engraved on the hearts of these people for generations. Solomon Serwanja, KTN News, Kampala, Uganda.
right, so Uganda will have their turn tomorrow. We still have him in the country for a couple of more hours. Tomorrow he has a very busy schedule ahead, and we'll be informing you of that, so do stay with KTN News. We are covering for you the trip to Kenya of the 266th Pope of the Catholic Church and the first Jesuit Pope. So we will be speaking to Dr. Elias Mokos, the director of Jesuit Hakimani in Kenya, and also a lecturer at the University of Nairobi, in just a moment right here on KTN Prime. Stay with us. Welcome back to KTN Prime. Our focus on Pope Francis' visit in the country continues right here on day 2 of his tour of the country and indeed of Africa. We're talking to a man now who truly calls Pope Francis brother, Dr. Elias Mokos, who is the director of the Jesuit Hakimani and also a lecturer at the University of Nairobi. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you so much.
So you are a Jesuit, and we've run a story on the Jesuits because it created much anticipation. But take us back a little bit to 2013. You know, white smoke, and he was revealed as the next Pope, the 266th Pope. What was that moment like for you?
Well, it was very exciting, the very first few seconds of his announcement. But then he gave us a shock, the first shock of the type of Pope he will become. He said, bless me. You know, we're used to the Pope blessing us. The first thing he said, bless me. And that was a shock, because totally different man, totally different character, a very different type of a Pope. So it was good. That is a Jesuit. We didn't expect it, because actually in the tradition and belief, the charism, the constitution of the sect of Jesus, who are Jesuits, we vow to serve the Pope, to be at the service of the Pope. So for years we have never had one, because that's where we owe our allegiance to. And then the cardinals, in their wisdom, decide to elect a Pope with a Jesuit. So we were excited.
All right, that must have been a great moment. Let's talk a little bit about his message here today, and I know this is something that you hold dear. I want to quote what he said today. He said, "Be careful not to fall into the sin of lukewarmness." Could you expound on that a little bit?
Being lukewarm is being neither good nor bad. You are not hot, you are not cold. So who are you? And actually he also calls it the globalization of indifference. You know, we see many social problems, many social ills, including our own country here, corruption, and you know, many other examples you can give. But then we do nothing. You know, we get concerned, we feel it, we think about it, we analyze, we discuss, we debate, but at the end of the day, we do nothing. So you become indifferent. So you between concern and not concern.
So how do you address the issue of being lukewarm? What do you do? Because what you talk about is something that we see constantly on social media. An issue will be brought up, we'll talk about it, we will get angry about it, we will start hashtags, and we will talk about it for months in matatus and public transport, you know, at newspaper vendors. You will see a lot of heated debate, and then after that we say, well, you know, that's life, that's Kenya, tumezoea.
That's very dangerous, you know, and that's how we let so many evils take root in our society. In the West, if, for example, a leader does something really bad, the leader must step aside, the leader must vacate office. But because of our culture, perhaps we have become too tolerant, and perhaps we have become too friendly, or we've become too, you know, we have known each other too much, to an extent that if something goes wrong, we somehow have a mechanism, internal mechanism of letting it go. So now, how do we have to address that? First of all, the Pope said, yes, let us rationalize our faith, let us have feelings for the others, but more importantly, let us walk what we believe. So it's action. This Pope is a Pope of action. He doesn't want you to tell him, oh, this is the rich, this is the poor, bring out all these highly sounding discussions. He doesn't want that. What are you doing with the poor? So he's really pushing us to do something. Like today, he talked about the youth. Be be agents of your own future. Take charge, take responsibility. Well, of course, that worries us, some of us who are out of that bracket of being young, you know, because it's like we are the ones who have laid down the generations that are coming. And they're saying, do something. And that doing something is coming out of that lukewarm kind of situation.
Okay, I want to talk about his crossover appeal. There's results from an Infotrack Harris poll that is out today. It was conducted a couple of days before he came in. And, you know, it showed that Catholics and non-Catholics alike were excited about his visit. But more so to the very last message on that one. When Kenyans were asked, and this is on the very last one, we can show this on screen. When Kenyans were asked whether they think the Pope represents a major positive change for the direction of global leadership, 85% of Catholics and non-Catholics alike agreed with him. 97% of Catholics agreed. That's what you see on our big Super Bowl tonight. So tell us about this. What is this inspiration that he has already, you know, as a global leader? We know about his efforts in the US and Cuba in terms of helping them, you know, recapture their diplomatic ties after decades of not doing that, 50 years, I believe. What is it about him?
Well, he's a very different Pope. He's a bottom-up kind of leader. He's a person who begins with the person at the low pyramid of life. He's a person who wants to touch the marginalized. And you know, the church or the believers in general, religious institutions, are really meant to address the plight of the poor. People want to hear a different message, concern, support for the poor, or for the people who may not be poor but who are kind of oppressed by structures. And the Pope is beginning there. He's saying, look, you have good things up there, you have good rules, you have good systems in place, structures, processes, and so on, but what are you doing with the poor? And there are many people across the world who are poor, and that's why he has a lot of support. Now that leaves us with one problem. To the leaders up there like him, I don't think most, you know, like this question at the direction of global leadership. I think that's tricky because there's no guarantee that they're going to support what he's saying.
Right.
At the bottom, there's a lot of support. But at the top, there might be people who are saying, why is this leader taking us? So I wouldn't say that it will change.
Okay.
Yeah, obviously, it will change. No, I wouldn't put it that way. He will challenge.
So challenging us, which is, you know, a good thing to begin with. So here's the challenge. He's leaving the country tomorrow at 3:30 p.m. He will leave the country after being with us for 3 days. Will we go back to being the same Kenyans that we were? In this poll, Kenyans asked, you know, there were some things they wanted him to talk about: peaceful coexistence, corruption, tribalism, respect for human rights, exercising leadership. And right now we're in such a space, and today was a public holiday for us to pray and reflect. What should happen so that we can sustain this momentum, so that we have messages of peace? And you know what's been going on in the country at the moment. We're dealing with corruption. You know, we're dealing with a lot of political rhetoric back and forth. How do we sustain the momentum we have at this moment beyond Friday, next week, 2 weeks, 1 month, a year from now?
I think there are two key messages that address that question. One, he was telling the religious leaders today, this afternoon, that you are there not to be served but to serve. And he really emphasized that. And he said, for you to serve, you need to pray. And it's only through prayer that you can manage. Now, when you serve, it can be difficult. And he did say that, look, walk yourself to the cross. Christ will take care of your resurrection. What does that mean? It's going to be difficult. It's going to be very difficult to come out of the challenges we have. But he expects leaders, all leaders, but especially his own religious people, to serve, to commit, to face the challenges, to cry. I was saying, cry for the poor, cry for the widows, cry for the marginalized, cry for the children.
Is that a message that also applies not just to leaders but to ordinary citizens? Yes,
of course, because he was saying, walk your faith. At the very end of the Mass, he said, be strong because you have faith. Now, if you have faith, you're going to move mountains. And we hope all the challenges facing her country will continue chasing them up. And it's like it's inspired us anew. It's really strongly reminded us that change is possible. Don't sit. Don't be indifferent.
don't be indifferent, don't be lukewarm, take a stand,
Yeah.
one way or the other, because lukewarm never did help anybody.
It doesn't help.
All right.
It doesn't.
Thank you very much, Dr. Elias Mokua, brother.
Thank you.
We can say to Pope Francis. He's the director of the Jesuit Hakimani here, and also a lecturer at the University of Nairobi, talking to us about the Pope. So, we're taking a short break right now on KTN Prime? I believe we are. Let's do that, and we'll see you shortly. December holidays are here with us again, and many school-going children are engaging in various activities ranging from traveling, playing video games, cycling and watching movies. However, Kisumu's Palos FC has decided to break the norm by offering a soccer camp to school children who also get Bible lessons. Victor Gale caught up with the program's handlers and filed the following story.
Palos FC is a household name among soccer enthusiasts in Kisumu County owing to its prowess on the pitch. The team recently produced a player to the national team, Calvin Somanga, who managed his debut after a splendid season. These lads who breathe, sleep, eat and think soccer have decided to extend their expertise to young ones who are on holiday.
A time like now when schools are closed, it's no longer like our days where we used to have space and play football and engage in meaningful activities. Yeah, so there was a need and there's a gap to engage children in more meaningful activities besides watching cartoons, besides watching computer games, videos and all that.
In the current world, when schools are on recess, many school-going kids opt for indoor activities such as watching television, video games and surfing the internet. However, through such programs, they get to learn a thing or two about sporting activities as they sharpen their skills.
We decided to incorporate the sports to make the children more active and at least enjoy themselves, because when they're in class throughout, they may get bored.
It's also fun while playing football and riding the bicycle.
After the sporting activities, which range from soccer, athletics and cycling, the over 30 kids sum it up with Bible lessons. Victor Ogale, KTN News, Kisumu County.
So that's where we wind it up right now on KTN Prime. We thank you for watching, even as we continue to cover the Pope's visit. Now, today, he met different religious leaders, and a topic that was on the table for discussion was religious extremism. John Alanamo is up next with an eminent panel to talk more about this. How do we fight this? How do we do this between different religious faiths? And also from a different standpoint altogether when it comes to religious extremism and radicalization. That discussion is up next right here on KTN News, where you get the whole story. Thanks very much for watching our bulletin throughout the week. I sign out tonight. Tomorrow it's all about Betty Callow, so please do stay with us right here on KTN News. Have a good night. Our sign language interpreter was Maresha Witty. I'm Yvonne Okwara Matole.